while the Prophet ﷺ was going towards Yathrib, Suraqa ibn Malik ibn Ju'shum, Suraqa ibn Malik ibn Ju'shum was sitting with his tribe members. One of them came back and he said, have you heard, Suraqa ibn Malik was not from the Quraysh, he was from a neighboring tribe. Have you heard that the Quraysh are offering a bounty of 100 camels? Now that is a fortune. That is literally like the equivalent of millions of dollars. The average person, if he had one camel, this is very good. If he had one camel, this is very good. Have you not heard that they're offering the bounty of 100 camels for each of the two? 200 camels, dead or alive. Look at the desperation. Dead or alive, each of the two, 100 camels for Muhammad ﷺ and his companion. While they were sitting in that gathering, another person came to that gathering. And he said, while I was coming back, I saw two riders in the distance. They might be Muhammad and his companion. Suraqa said, I made a motion to him with my eyes. Be quiet. I made a motion to him. And I said, no, it is not them. It is so and so and so and so. I know them. I sent them on that direction. So Suraqa, what is he trying to do? Trying to get the bounty for himself. Okay? So all of these people obviously are mushrikun at this time. When the tribesman comes, Suraqa makes a motion to him. Just be quiet. I'll give you some. Don't worry, basically. Okay? Trust me on this one. And then Suraqa said, I know who they are. They're not the two people you think they are. I sent them myself. The two people from this tribe. Then as the conversations continuing, Suraqa makes an excuse, quickly rushes home, tells his slave girl to prepare his horse and saddle and take it out the city. He cannot be seen, obviously, taking out the city. And he said, he literally sneaked away, going down the houses and above the roofs, basically trying to find a way out of the city that nobody could see him. And he met his slave girl outside the city where he had told her to meet, and he then rode to that place where this man said he saw the Prophet and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And he rode to this place until when I could see them in the distance. He had his bow and arrow and he can see them in the distance, when all of a sudden my horse stumbled. And it had never done so before. His horse was a good horse. It was a well-known horse, a steed of war, if you like. And its two legs fell into the ground. I then said, what is this? And I took out my divining arrows. Divining arrows was their way of, their type of istikhara, if you like, a shirki istikhara. But that was what they used to do. They had a divining arrow, where they would take 2-3 types of arrows, which had written on them the names of things, and they would put it in a special bag. They would pull out the arrow, and depending on what it said, they would act upon it or not. One arrow would say, do it. One arrow would say, well, don't do it. Remember, we talked about this long time ago when we were talking about Abdullah, the father of the Prophet ﷺ, and the sacrifice that Abdul Muttalib had vowed he would do, the same divining arrows. So I did this, and the arrow that came out said, don't proceed. I ignored it. I jumped on my horse. I raced forward again. 100 camels is a very big booty. So I raced on my horse and I proceeded again. The second time I did the same thing. I asked it the same question and the same response came out. Don't proceed. Once again I threw it back in the pouch, jumped on my horse and galloped towards them. The third time he said the horse's qawa'im, or the horse's feet, sinked entirely into the ground. And I was within shouting distance. Now remember, we're talking about he first saw them literally on the horizon. And that's when the first time happened. Secondly, his galloping happens again. Third time, it's within shouting distance. That is when the horse completely sunk into the ground. And this is in Bukhari. And he said, I saw a thick cloud of smoke come up from where the horse was. Fireless smoke, there is no fire there. I saw a cloud of smoke come up in front of me, and so I knew that something was wrong. In other words, I knew that this was not meant for me, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was protecting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I called out to them, I promise you no harm shall come to you from me, allow me to talk to you. Allow me to talk to you. In another narration he said, when I was riding towards them, this is a beautiful narration, this is Ibn Ishaq. When I was riding towards them, I saw Abu Bakr was always looking around everywhere. Always worried, was anything going to happen? And the Prophet ﷺ was riding, looking straight ahead, reciting the Quran. Look at the contrast. The Prophet ﷺ is reciting the Quran, oblivious, he knows Allah will protect him. Abu Bakr doing his job, supposed to protect the Prophet ﷺ. Another narration says, once Abu Bakr would be in front of him, then he would go behind him, and then in front of him. The Prophet ﷺ asked him, what are you doing? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I think someone will attack in front of you, so I come in front. Then I'm worried someone will come behind, I come behind. Look at his protection of the Prophet ﷺ. Suraqah said the Prophet ﷺ was reciting the Quran, Abu Bakr was looking around anxiously, nervously, making sure nobody had seen them, until finally when I said to them, I will not harm you, I went up to them and I asked them if they needed anything from me. Suraqah knew now. Now he had accepted Islam in his heart. He knew that this was a Prophet of Allah. But he did not accept Islam officially until when the Prophet ﷺ conquered Mecca many years later. Right now, he knew that the Prophet ﷺ was the Prophet of Allah in his heart. He said, "Was there anything that is there anything that I can give you or do for you?" The Prophet ﷺ said, "We have no need of anything." He said he offered to them his bows and arrows. He offered to them some food that he had. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La hajat lana." We have no need of this. Subhanallah. You can imagine they hardly had anything with them, but this is of the perfection of the character of the Prophet ﷺ, not taking anything from this mushrik. We do not need anything at all. So Suraqah said, I left with exactly what I came. They didn't take a single ounce from me. I left them exactly as I came, even though I offered them all that I had. I said to them, write for me a aman. Aman means a security contract, if you like. It's like a type of visa, if you like, that you will not harm me. You will not harm me. Look, Suraqah is the one who has the bows and arrows. Suraqah is the one armored. Okay? The Prophet says, okay, they're not even wearing anything. They have no weaponry at all. Suraqah is asking for them protection. Write me a letter that you will not harm me. I will be safe when someday you will be given victory. So the Prophet commanded Amir ibn Fuhayra to write on a piece of bone that he had, that Suraqah ibn Malik will be safe from the Prophet ﷺ. He said, what can I do for you? The Prophet ﷺ said, divert people away from us, that's all. Make sure nobody comes in this direction. So it is narrated that Suraqah would make a point, whenever he heard that somebody was going in the direction of the Prophet ﷺ, he would say, no, I've already been there. Nobody's there, try another place. So he did fulfill his part of the agreement. That when the Prophet ﷺ asked him of this, he said, whenever anybody would go in that direction, I would say, I've already been in that direction, try another place. There was nobody there. And in fact, Suraqah eventually did accept Islam. He accepted Islam after the conquest of Mecca, during the incident of Hunayn and Ta'if, which occurred in the 8th year of the Hijrah, when the Prophet ﷺ basically conquered all of Arabia. When you conquer Mecca and Hunayn and Ta'if, that was it. The rest of Arabia was like dominoes falling one by one. Suraqah ibn Malik came and he said, Ya Rasulullah, do you know who this is? This is Suraqah ibn Malik, and here is my aman that I got from you. And he handed back to the Prophet ﷺ exactly what the Prophet ﷺ had given to him. And the Prophet ﷺ said, today is the day of fulfilling promises and of generosity. Today is the day of fulfilling promises and generosity. And so he treated him hospitably. As for the narration that the Prophet ﷺ said, O Suraqah, what will you do the day that you wear the bracelets of Caesar? This narration is found in some of the later sources, Ibn Hajar's Al-Isaba and Ibn Abd al-Bar's book as well. It is not found in the early narrations, and there is no harm in narrating it, or even though, as we said, it is not found in the early narrations. And Bukhari, as we said, narrates the gist of Suraqah's story. So the Prophet, according to this narration, said to Suraqah, while they were leaving, Suraqah is about to leave, they're about to go their way, he turned and he said, O Suraqah, what will you do the day that the bracelets that Caesar wears will be around your hands? And Suraqah said, Caesar, the emperor of Rome? The Prophet ﷺ said, Caesar, the emperor of Rome. Suraqah went back completely flabbergasted. What is he talking about? How can I wear the bracelets of the Caesar of Rome? And the Prophet ﷺ went on, gave his da'wah, he conquered Mecca, the Arabian Peninsula, he went to meet his Lord, and his death occurred. Abu Bakr came, Abu Bakr died, Umar came, and finally the Byzantine Empire fell under the army of the Muslims in the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, and the Muslim army had sent back all of the treasures and booty to Medina, and in the Prophet's masjid there was the treasure of the Emperor of Rome, And when Umar ibn al-Khattab saw the two bracelets, he said, where is Suraqa ibn Malik from the tribe of Daljam? And so they call Suraqa ibn Malik. And when Suraqa ibn Malik came, Umar himself put these two bracelets on the hands of Suraqa. And he said, praise be to Allah, who stripped the bracelets from the hand of Caesar and put it upon an Arab from the tribe of Daljam, an average Arab. Okay, and that was the fulfillment of the prophecy given to Suraqa ibn Malik when the Prophet ﷺ was in the middle of the desert, fleeing for his very life, not having, forget an empire, not even having a group to protect him, with his best friend and a slave and a guide, that is it. And he tells him, the greatest superpower on the face of this earth, the emperor's bracelet shall be yours. And that is exactly what happened to Suraqa ibn Malik. It is also narrated in Sahih Bukhari that every time a caravan would pass by, the people will recognize Abu Bakr. Why would they recognize Abu Bakr? Because Abu Bakr was a well-traveled man. The Prophet ﷺ was busy in Mecca preaching. Abu Bakr and the other traders, they would go everywhere. So they would recognize Abu Bakr. Now realize, these people are heading towards Mecca. They haven't heard what's happened yet. This is not the age of the telecommunications. No internet, no telephone, nothing. They don't know what's happening. They don't know there's a price on Abu Bakr's head. So they pass by Abu Bakr and they say, Abu Bakr, who is this man with you? And Abu Bakr responded, he is my guide. He guides me to the path. He is my guide. He guides me to the path. So they thought he is the guide, meaning the slave or the one guiding. But the reality, and this, as we said, is called tawliya, the double meaning. The reality is saying, he is my guide, guiding me to Jannah, the Sirat al-Mustaqim. This is the guide that I have. One more miraculous incident is narrated and is authentic of the Hijrah, narrated in many books of the Sunnah. Majma' al-Zawaid, al-Tabarani's Kabir, Ibn Sa'd's Tabaqat, many books of the Sunnah, they narrate this story, and it is authentic, and it is the encounter that the Prophet ﷺ had with Ma'bad. Ma'bad was encamped at a place called Qadid. Qadid, amazingly, when you're traveling from Mecca to Medina, you still see this place called Qadid. Next time you travel, make sure you keep a note of the signs. When you get somewhere middle way, you will see a sign which says the city of Qadid. This city, which is still existent, Ma'bad was over there. And the Prophet ﷺ passed by with Abu Bakr, and they asked, Ma'bad was in the tent, and her husband had gone to take care of the sheep or the goats for the entire day. They passed by, and they said if she had any milk to give them. They didn't have anything. So do you have any milk? We are guests, we are travelers. And the Arabs were always known for their hospitality. A complete stranger could come and ask and receive something generally, if the people had it. Ma'bad said, we have nothing to give. All of our sheep and goats are dry, and the ones that are not are pregnant. Now the pregnant goats, obviously they will not give milk. And the ones that are dry and old, they will not give milk either. The Prophet ﷺ pointed to a goat at the corner of the tent, the oldest goat in her flock. The Prophet ﷺ said, may I try? May I try to get milk? She said, if you want to, go ahead. So the Prophet ﷺ made dua and rubbed his hands on the udders of the goat, and the udder just filled up with milk, and they drank to their fill, and Ma'bad drank to her fill, and they left the containers in the tent full as well. When Ma'bad's husband came home, she had a wonderful story to describe. She told her husband exactly what happened, and her husband said, this must be the man that I heard about in Mecca. And if what you say is true, then he is the Prophet of Allah, and it is narrated that they accepted Islam as well.